interesting millennial news. Generation Z is currently outpacing millennials in almost every walk of life. To be very clear, Gen Z is not messing around. They are taking whatever jobs they can and they are building wealth, resources, and they are not complaining as they do it. It's actually a very amazing thing. While, of course, there are some overlaps within the generations, you're finding that Generation Z is the most conservative generation since the pre war generation. So basically, going back to the parents of not even the boomers, but the parents, supposedly the parents of the silent generation. So we're going back to like the 1800s, possibly. Gen Z, this is where things get so interesting because people often think that, the United States and the way things are in the US right now is or just around the world is like this after so much things have changed and people have become more liberal, and the truth is that's not the case. If you look at old movies, if you look at the going back 100 years, things have been pretty down to earth for quite some time. In reality, we've actually become a lot more conservative and a lot less tolerable. Now, Generation Z, on the other hand, they're doing something so different. So they're they are outpacing millennials by in almost every way. And this is an article written by a baby boomer that says he's starting to feel sorry. He said that he's starting to feel sorry for millennials. This is actually from the Independent, and he says, in fact, ONS suggests that millennials were peak libertines with a higher rate of alcohol consumption. For example, those coming before or since drowning their sorrows, I guess. This is extremely serious. He says, I hate to admit, this upsets me because, he's saying he hates to admit that he's feeling sorry for us. I hate to admit that I am almost feeling sorry for us. Okay? Feeling sorry for millennials. According to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, a highly reputable organization, no one should argue with, a 35-year-old in 2018 is earning about $3,000 a year, less than their equivalent would have been getting back in 2008. An age gap group, sad to rate, have seen their incomes drop age group for age group. Not for example, a 35-year-old in 2008 who is 45 years old now. But the collapse has been the most pronounced for those born roughly in the 1980s and 1990s. No wonder they feel their dreams of property ownership, suitable employment with a fair wage, and general economic security are receding. This is very interesting, guys. Worse, still the sensible. This is so insane. Generation sensible, as they're being called, seems to have they really seem to have it under control. So let me read this. They seem to have things rather better than their slightly older peers. The Office for National Statistics is producing a fascinating run of reports on being 18 in 2018, tracking the shifting fortunes of those born on cusp of the new millennium, but not so-called millennials. And basically, they're making more money than we are. They are succeeding in life. They are starting families. So Generation Z is outpacing millennials in starting families and in starting a business, in making important changes in their lives. While most millennials are still living at home, Generation Z are more likely to move out on their own. Generation Z is less likely to complain and more practical about the situations that they're in. They also have significantly less debt than millennials. And what's so interesting about this is that many Generation Zers are foregoing university entirely. What this basically means that they will not be saddled down with the same insane amounts of student loan debt that us millennials have been saddled down with. Let's read. Now, we're still the next generation of youngsters, Generation Z, or generations, since what they're being called, seem to have things rather better than the millennials. And those post-millennials are striking a are strike are striking a number of ways. Striking a number of ways. Some to me are laudable. They are sensible in that they drink and smoke less than I should imagine any previous generation since Sir Walter Rye brought the oh gosh. Guys, millennials, so Generation Z drinks and smokes. Listen to this. They drink and smoke less than any other generation going back hundreds of years potentially. Hundred Generation Z is potentially the most conservative generation in American history. Not simply going back to the pre-war generation in American history. Okay? They're a very, very different generation from the millennials. They're kind of like what the millennials should have been if they didn't end up, racked down with massive amounts of student loans and, crippling amounts of debt and, spending a decade or more in university when they should have been building relationships and starting families. And now I end up with nothing to show for it. Generation Z is very, very different. So Gen Z is not even like the parent. They're not even like the parents necessarily of the boomers. They're an entirely different generation. One like the world has never seen before, or at least not the United States. We're talking about hundreds of years in differences. Okay, like Generation Z is more different than any generation that in American history. We're going back 400. We're going back to the very start, almost of the United States. This is why we can expect some significant differences as the country is changing, as these young people begin to change the political spectrum and begin voting. And they're not, guys, like I said, they're not messing around. They're taking whatever jobs they can get and they're building on that. They're starting their own businesses. They're the most entrepreneurial generation in history. Okay? I mean, this is unbelievable stuff. They have, according to, Generation Z, they socialize versus millennials who have literally retreated into their bedrooms. I mean, face-to-face human interaction, not sitting around on an iPad, tweeting, or on Instagram, whatever that is, far less than their predecessors. So this is another unbelievable point. Millennials are significantly more glued to social media and electronic devices than Generation Z. Generation Z is more likely to have a conversation in person than they are to use online dating or to spend their time on Facebook. In fact, Facebook is very well aware of this, that Generation Z is abandoning it. It's been happening for years, the exodus of Generation Z away from Facebook. Generation Z values things like human contact, human connection, and communication. Millennials, on the other hand, we don't. Generation Z is also more tolerant than the millennial generation in the sense that they are able to tolerate other opinions and ideas better than millennials. This doesn't necessarily mean they're more liberal or conservative. What it means is that they are more likely to be able to have an adult conversation without screeching, yelling. And another interesting point is Generation Z is also less likely to be involved in these social political groups. It's unbelievable. Generation Z is avoiding all of this. They're building their lives, and Generation Z may very well be set to be one of the wealthiest generations in American history ever, which is just frightening. And I'll explain. So they're the ones who are building out the businesses. They're the ones creating the companies. They're the ones who are creating the next generation of wealth. Millennials are not creating wealth. In fact, we only hold about 3% of all the wealth in the United States, and I would assume strongly that most of that's actually a good deal of that's held by Mark Zuckerberg and other millennials that are extremely wealthy. So most of the wealth that millennials hold in the United States is probably held by somewhere around 100 to 1,000 people at best. I'm thinking somewhere between 100 and 1,000 people, 1,000 millennials hold virtually all the wealth that millennials hold in the United States, and the irony is that that only amounts to 3%. 3%. Okay, millennials are the largest generation. We're also turning 40, so we've been in the economy for a while now, and over the course of 20 years, our fortunes have only decreased. There are fewer millennials working today than there were working during the Great Recession. Okay, working before the Great Recession hit back in 2009, was it, or 2008? I mean, guys, this is unbelievable. I mean, we're even we are more stuck to our phones and our iPads than Generation Z. Like if that's not a wake up call, and Gen Z is certainly a generation brought up entirely in the digi standard society today, and their awakening adulthood spent during the Great Recession that followed the financial crisis. Their earnings seem not to have been as hard hit as millennials as with every generation before them. They can look forward to a long life with miracle cures covering so many of the diseases once thought uncurable. Well into their 90s. A significant number of Gen Z will see the 22nd century. Globally, Gen Z will outnumber millennials next year. Listen to what they said, guys. A significant number of Gen Z will see into the 22nd century. A significant number of Gen Z. So people who are 25 and younger today are a significant portion of them will live into the 22nd century. All right? That's 80 years from now. So they are expected to have potentially the longest lifespan the longest lifespan of any American generation, while millennials are expected to have a shorter lifespan than than the baby boomers, well, Generation X, the baby boomers, and going all the way back to the silent generation born around 1920. So 100 years ago, the only time that there was another generation that did not have a lifespan as long as a lifespan the same as the millennials was about 100 years ago, almost. 100 years ago. Guys, this is how bad it is. So the lifespan of millennials have deteriorated to almost the standards of people who are around 100 years ago that did not have access to advanced medicine, did not have access to the same level of sanitation that we do, did not have access to the same level of education that we do. There are so many things that we have today that weren't around 100 years ago, and we have a shorter lifespan than the Generation X, the boomers, and potentially even the silent generation. Okay, guys, I want you to understand something, that this is the situation that we're in right now. We are in this situation because we are not paying attention enough. It's frightening. Cryptonomy says, angry, want to wrench my renewed account if easier, and wow, 22nd century. That's what I'm thinking, bro. That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's literally unbelievable. Cryptonomy, shame on you. Now I have to literally go to YouTube and do that, because I'm using third-party software now that allows me to stream here really, really fast. It's really, really effective. I also want to tell you guys something crazy. Literally, I've been putting out my videos today, and the crazy thing is, I keep on planning to put out okay, I'm gonna put out one video and I'm gonna go chill. I'm gonna put out one video, I'm gonna watch some anime, and so many things just keep coming up that I'm like, okay, oh gosh, this is the last video. This is the last video. This is the last video, guys. And it's not the last video. It's there's almost always another one. On to the next one, you know? And now I gotta head over to what do you call it, to go chat, to go wrench. Oh gosh, what the hell? All right, there we go. So I gotta head all the way over here just to wrench Cryptonomy. There you go, bro. I just wrenched you. I just wrenched you. Congratulations. Give you back your wrench on this other account. One of the reasons why this channel actually has worked so well in the past is because I pretty much make everybody a moderator. So like all the regulars, and this way, they basically control the space. It's interesting. They know who should be here and who shouldn't be here. And I welcome everyone. Everyone's welcome to come and watch the videos, enjoy it, guys, girls, everyone. But at the same time, like if you come on and you're like just trying to disrupt the stream, then it's great having these moderators around because they'll take care of business and yeah. Let me see, Krypton. Let me read what you're saying about this right here. I have a friend who keeps bugging me about transhumanism. She's like so angry. You think that you want to maybe tell us, maybe you want to work, because she knows I'm a brilliant man. I'm an exceptionally brilliant man, and she keeps on bugging me to like look into transhumanism so that she can basically move her brain into a computer and live forever. And there's something about it. There's just something about it that I'm just not down with that life, But anyway, Cryptonomy said, I'm with you, bro. And yeah, the 22nd century WTF, this dude just put out a video how they will use AI surveillance at airports to track you. That's absolutely correct. They're already using it. Here in China, they already do that stuff. So they actually scan your ear, and the security cameras can scan your ear. That's old technology, but they're just implementing it is like, because like right now I have to use a VPN, but just implementing that technology is something standard. So basically everyone's earlobe, this is where things get funny. Every person's earlobe is unique. There are no two people with the exact same earlobe, including identical twins, because that's actually something that's shaped externally within the womb, not by genetics. Shocker, right? So these cameras can actually scan your ear, and it can check the shape of it, the unique properties of it, and going through a database of millions of people, it actually can detect which earlobe matches alongside which person. It's essentially the modern day fingerprint scanners. So that makes perfect sense that they would begin doing that, tracking, using that technology at airports. It's just how the society is. And if you can't, if it's not illegal, if law enforcement is not allowed, if it's something that they can't do, then they will do it. That's basically it. It requires new laws to prevent things like that from happening. What's really important, though, is how this data is going to be used. Because if the government can track you, then the government can also influence your behavior. And they could basically decide where you live, what you do. That is an issue. National surveillance. So, for example, being under surveillance 24 hours a day or constantly, that is something that does come up. If you have a system that literally is designed to track a person everywhere they go, it is highly concerning. And now most of the courts would say, well, it's not a big deal. Well, technically it's not illegal. They're going to say it's not illegal as long as because you're in a public place. So if you're in a public place and you end up being tracked in a public place or seen in a public place, then you don't have, again, it doesn't mean you're being tracked. But then here's the problem. Now, if the system is designed in such a way that it begins tracking someone's movements, like, so for example, you have cameras in airports, you have the cameras on turnstiles, you have cameras in the subways, you have cameras in all these central places. Essentially, what that can do is it can allow them to track any given person at any given time, virtually wherever they go. So at any given time, you'll know that a specific person is within a specific area. And then here's where things get even more intriguing. They can ping your cell phone technically to find out your location too. So if you have a cell phone on you, yeah, they can use that to find you at any moment. The truth is that we're heading into a society where you don't actually know if you're being watched. And the next generation of these cameras are not those big cameras that you see everywhere and you like, wow, you know it's watching you. The next generation of security cameras are cameras you don't see, hidden cameras that are cameras that are literally integrated so well that you don't even notice it. You don't see it there. You're going to see more of this popping up in businesses, and especially in federal buildings. They already do exist to some degree, so you won't even know that you're being tracked. Um, I do suspect that like some kind of app will eventually emerge that will allow people to like report that they, that there's a camera there, because there are still ways to determine if a camera is nearby. Because these cameras a lot of times are now connected to Wi-Fi, and they also give off a certain signal. So there are ways to determine if there's a camera nearby, but you do need technology to do that. Otherwise, if it's hidden from the plain eye, you won't even know that there's a camera there. So that is a pretty serious thing to consider. Now, in Cryptonomy said maybe they can scan our illnesses too. Yeah, it's insane. Would be according to regulation, and though I already agreed with doing away the communist countries. So yeah, they actually can. So you can actually take like a thermal image of a person's body, and you can, depending on information like that, changes in that, you can also determine potentially a person's health. But going even taking a step back, you don't even need to go that far. Really, if you can scan a person's face, and if you can scan a person's face, various features using AI can pretty much detect if a person is sick, or is this person likely sick? Again, there are a number of factors that can be used to determine if a person is sick, just using AI and statistics. So that is something to consider. And it's funny when you wonder how Generation Z might deal with all of this, if they'll be the generation that says, we're not going to put up with that. We don't like surveillance. We don't like being tracked. We share what information we want to share, and that's it. And it's interesting to wonder, like, will they be that generation that says they're not going to tolerate it and change things? And keep in mind, Generation Z seems to be a pretty solid generation, and and many of them are very, very, they're very serious about voting. So while most millennials don't even bother voting, like a significant portion of us, if not most of us, don't even vote, even though like we're campaigning for politicians. Like, it's something that was really unbelievable. During the 2014 elections, many millennials who were literally out there knocking on doors and begging and telling people, please vote for our candidate. They didn't actually vote. They did not go and vote. It's such an interesting thing. Gen Z, on the other hand, they're just gonna go vote. They're just gonna go vote. While millennials are like, please vote for this person, vote for this person, vote for this person, right? Gen Z is just gonna go vote, and it's such a big difference because millennials, we basically say go vote, but we don't actually vote ourselves, which is essentially us trying to exert control over society. Gen Z, on the other hand, just goes out and actually gets it done. So basically, they can shift almost every election going forward. And voting is just not a behavior that has really, like, especially among liberal millennials, voting is just something that hasn't caught on. It's weird. Like, baby boomers are more likely to vote than millennials. Generation X is more likely to vote than millennials. And Generation Z is also more likely to vote than millennials. That is a bit of a frightening statistic. I got to be honest with you. It definitely concerns me that generation Y, the millennial generation, is, even when it comes to voting, we're being outpaced by Generation Z. And I'm going to tell you guys something very interesting. So Generation Z, the children of Generation Z, are probably going to be extremely conservative, and I'm telling you the reason why. Because Generation Z is looking at what's happening with the millennials right now, and they're going to be they're going to raise their kids to be extremely conservative. And the boomers are referring to generation, what do you call them, Generation Z, as generation practical, or the boomers have basically stepped away from the millennials. Like, I'll tell you guys something. Back, like, if you want to go back 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, like to the 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, boomers were actually really nice to us. Like they were nice to us. They were trying to butter us up and everything. And then the crisis hit with the financial crisis, the global economic collapse, and as we realized that things are not getting better for us, they basically started saying, just making fun of us. On the other hand, Generation Z doesn't complain about anything, and because they don't complain about anything, they call it Generation Sensible. Because they don't complain about anything, they basically are flying under the radar. They don't talk, they act. Like this is such a big difference with our generation. We're out there, on TV and making videos on YouTube. Generation Z is voting. They act. They're not talking, they're acting. This is such a big shift in generations, and this is why they will undoubtedly end up exerting ultimate control. Because I mean, millennials, like, I'm just going to be honest, I'm working my butt off so that I don't end up like the average millennial who's going to be, like I talk about the tiny houses. They're like, oh, everyone loves these tiny houses. And I keep telling you, they're really big coffins. And I'm not trying to be one of those millennials that are living in one of those things, or just are outside homeless, or I'm not about that life, So I've done it. I tried it. It's not for me, bro. So, we have to kind of like, I'm doing my thing. Now, personally, you need to do your thing, because when you look at like the economy for millennials right now, I think that cryptocurrency, truth be told, is probably the best bet for millennials to save. Because listen, you're not coming back unless you're extremely entrepreneurial, and most of you aren't. Be honest with yourselves. You're not going to actually step up and say, oh, I'm going to go out there and try to do something different, start a business. You'll talk about starting a business, but you'll never start the business. Look at Tim. Tim has multiple businesses. Like Timothy Leoza, he's doing video gaming. He has his own little studio, his own gaming studio now. He has his own. He's a head chef. He's a crypto broker. He has tons and tons of virtual cryptocurrency that he got for free using the course I told you guys about a number of times that you should take, how to get tons of cryptocurrency for free without paying for it. And that's without mining or paying for it. And that's actually a course on cryptomoney.academy that you can find. You can find a link in the description if you want to find that course. But guys like Tim, they don't really care. They're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna get my job done, and they're getting the work done. They're so mature. They're just so mature. We also do have another course for you guys called How to Make Massive Profits from ICOs Without Investing in Them. A lot of people don't know this, but the people that make most of the money from ICOs don't actually spend a dime on them, or if they do, it's literally pennies on the dollar. This is a course that I actually just put out recently, and it teaches you how it teaches you how to make massive profit off initial coin offerings, and most commonly now known as initial exchange offerings, because the the sales are being conducted on exchanges, thereby taking off the liability that you're selling securities. And by the end of the course, you're going to actually know how to spot and invest in the ICOs that are going to make you massive profit with zero investment. You're going to learn how to use ICO investing strategies to get more coins, make more profit with zero investment. You're going to learn how to spot scam ICOs and actually use those scam ICOs to make more profit with zero investment. And of course, you're going to learn the biggest mistake ICO investors make that cost them everything, and how to avoid it so that you can make massive profit. There's a link to, you can find this course on cryptomoney.academy. There's a link in the description that will take you to the page, and you can go and get the course, because right now, everything is literally just catastrophic for my generation. We're not doing well at all. Another great thing you can do is you no longer have to have powerful hardware to mine cryptocurrency. You can mine it from even your phone, but you have to know which coins to mine and how to do this. You can mine it from so many different devices. You can mine crypto without even having a cell phone. I know you're like, what? So the way you can do this is by taking this course, you're going to learn how to make massive profit mining the most valuable coins. I've made thousands in mining, and you learn what is crypto mining, how crypto mining works, methods for mining cryptocurrency, the different mining options that exist. So we're talking all the various kinds, not just your PC. It's going to also tell you about how you can, find the right mining method so that's the easiest for you. A lot of people think that you need to go and set up this huge rig of computers to start mining. No, that's absolutely incorrect. You can actually mine. It's about mining the right coin. And so there's a lot of coins you can mine now that don't require virtually any processing power because they're operating using simulated mining. So you're going to learn everything and more in this course, and you're also going to learn the most profitable cryptocurrencies for mining. So take that into consideration. Both courses are on cryptomoney.academy. Both courses are available for $299.99 right now, and that's actually that's the special price. For the massive ICO course, this course is actually usually goes for almost $1,600, but you can get it right now for $299.99 while the sale continues. Oh my goodness. I just can't yeah, Underdog is in the chat just chatting himself up. Goo Monster has arrived and he says, I'm a millennial, and I gotta say, even as a teenager, I was embarrassed by the lack of self-accountability, and now the fruits are falling off the tree and smacking the ground. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Like I said, listen, to my millennial peeps, I'm just gonna be real with y'all. Okay. Like I said, I'm working on that expat course that's gonna tell you where to go and how, where to rush to, where to go, to survive so that you can live. For example, if you're a person who has money, if you have good savings and stuff, you'll live like a king. If you don't, you'll still live like a king. And I'm also going to talk about in the course how to make money overseas. So, for example, you leave the country and you're like, what the heck do I do? How do I make money overseas while I'm living there? Well, guess what, guys? I make money and I don't live in the United States. How do I do that? You're going to learn how to find your specific niche, how to build a business quickly. I mean, again, you can do that using cryptocurrency, but there's also other things that you can do that will allow you to make money rapidly just because you live in those countries. You're going to say, no, come on. I'm talking about things you would never imagine possible. So you're going to learn those things in the course, how to make money living overseas. We're going to set all of this up for you, and you guys are going to survive and thrive once you get out of the US. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. I want to know if you are shocked that Generation Z is the most conservative generation in possibly in US history, not in just the last 100 years, but since the inception of this country, and how you think this country will be shaped by the events by this generation. Also, what do you think the future for millennials are? Do you think that we'll eventually we'll figure something out, or do you think that those tiny houses / tiny coffins are going to be pretty much as good as it gets for us? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you liked the video, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Love Jesus. Get your money, and I will see you in the next one. This was a fun video to make. All right. Cryptomoney.academy if you want to get a course. They're all linked in the description. Alrighty. Yeah, that's a pod, but that's just not happening. Oh, looks like they're here. I don't know. It's a real mean looking piece of weed, right? Yeah, you know what? That's the weed that was on the floor. I'm gonna be honest. So I can get sick from this piece of weed. Fuck that. I don't know about that. Let's put it in here. Be real with you. This. Fix that shit up. I didn't even realize that I could do this. I'm gonna put that in here. That right.